Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 53 of the Casual Gamecast, a weekly video game podcast for the everyday gamer, brought to you by the team at Casual Game Content. I'm Phil Keogh.
I'm Shane Bowe.
And...
podcast so nice you've got to come on it twice. It's me, I'm Aaron. Hi guys.
Can I just point something out? I've noticed this when we were looking back over last week's video, is you always start off really soft and really sultry, and then you taper off to being normal after that. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a nervous tick. I always start off skittish. I've got to ease myself into a conversation, or else I frighten a woodland
get,
deer.
Like, a kind of a biscuit, or some kind of like nuts or something, just kind of ease you out of your
and you have to approach me from the side and upwind, so I can't smell you coming, or else I just
Aaron
fucking
Thompson,
leg
the
it.
Badger of CGC, yes. If you have never been here before, welcome. You have stumbled across what is by far the most casual of gaming podcasts on the interwebs, a casual gamecast, if you will. And if you have been here before, welcome back, because we've got a great show for you guys this week. We are, as per usual, going to chat it up in all things this week in gaming and just in our lives in general this week. Then we are going to take a quick break, remind you guys about our socials before jumping into what happened at Gamescom. We are actually 50% through it as we record it at this moment in time. One day of Gamescom has happened, the other day is happening as we speak, and possibly something's going to happen tomorrow. So we kind of have the lowdown on what happened yesterday, day one, but it seems as if most of the announcements happened there, so that's pretty good. And we're just going to talk about what we've seen there. Before we go any further though, rather than throwing it to each of you individually, I'm going to throw it to the room. How has the week been?
The week's been grand for me. Working flat out. Nothing new, nothing exciting. Did I do anything new or exciting this week? I don't think so.
Okay, new rule. We're not allowed anymore to come on and say, no, nothing happened. No, we're having for a boring week. What we have to do is, if we can't think of anything interesting that happened, we have to come up with like a pet peeve, or we have to come up with like an interesting fact, or we have to come up with something that's just like, punch in the face of information.
Oh, that's
right.
interesting. So like every week we have to go out of our way, or six days of the week we have to go out of our way just to do something exciting to bring it on into here, like show and tell.
If that's less painful than doing a quick Google search for something interesting, then yeah. I'll get us started there. I'll vamp for a few moments as we think. Anyway, so this week I have done. Well, I think my most interesting thing I've done this week is I have been trying. It's very warm in here, pardon me, but I have been trying to get back into streaming in somewhat of a casual, if you'll excuse the pun, way. And in doing so, I've been kind of setting up all my overlays and setting up like all of the little nitty gritty bits and pieces that you can kind of do. It's one of those things, isn't it, Aaron and Shane? I don't know how much you've ever messed around with like overlays and all that kind of crap, but like when I get into these things, I can't stop myself. I'm losing days and hours and hours and hours just trying to get like my PS2 footage to like fit inside this fake TV overlay, and have my Casual Game Co stuff coming in, and at the perfect time, and all of these like random emotes and stuff happening. It's a whole thing.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, I love it, but it's always the case of like, you get something, you're like, oh yeah, that's grand and that's nice, and then you'll like implement it. You go, I love the way it looks. What if it was like just slightly to the left though? And then you go, because I did it myself, because I was setting up. I've only done one stream so far, and I do wish to get into it more. But I had to basically go into like Photoshop and After Effects and make my own stream overlays, because there's none for just 21:9 streaming. There also isn't 21:9 streaming, which I found out afterwards. So everything I made was just squashed in anyway.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, there is in a way, but not the way I was doing it.
That is interesting, actually. So if you've got like an ultra-wide monitor, you're just going to have like the ideal situation is you have a game running here and you have like OBS over here, because it can't actually display like Apex Legends at like this mad aspect. Yeah,
so it'll either just give you the 4:3 in I was using Streamlabs, so it either gives you like a 4:3 and you just have big black bars on the side, or you can stretch it out and then you end up missing like vertical details. So it's kind of I've no idea what kind of a nightmarish stream it'd look like on a mobile device, but yeah, I had a look, and I mean it wasn't
market there,
Sure. It wasn't too bad because I mean at least I was only streaming Ableton, so you're only talking about looking at like a music software and timelines, so it was grand that was squished in, but even still. I was fairly squeezed into the corner during my live stream.
Well, lesson learned.
Yeah.
Now, enough about that, I guess. But if anybody does want to follow the Casual Game Co. Twitch, you can do so. It is, as I said there, it's the same as all of our socials. CASUALGAMECO on Twitch. Can't miss it. Can't be any simpler. Shane, anything interesting to say? In general.
Yes, I actually do. Something popped into my head the other day, and it's because not in the other day, right now. Aaron, they're just talking about streaming music and stuff. I came across a YouTube channel the other day that I know Aaron would be interested in from a music perspective, and I know you would be interested in from a game perspective.
Okay.
So the YouTube channel is called Jeff Plays Guitar. I can't remember which spelling of Jeff it is. I don't know if it's Jeff with a J or
Jeff. I think I've definitely heard of him before. Yeah.
He also has like a Spotify channel and everything. But anyway, what he does is he goes, "What would, like, say, a Final Fantasy song sound like if it was played in the style of the music from Doom?" Or what? Lately, he's been on this crazy Doom kick where it's like, What does the soundtrack of Bloodborne sound like if you played like the way music in Doom is played?
Right.
And he just puts out videos like this all the time. And his Bloodborne one, he plays the boss music from the Ludwig fight from the DLC. And his Doom version absolutely slaps hard. It is a banger. I have not stopped listening to it.
Nice.
But he does it with loads of games and loads of it's mainly Doom music at the moment. That must be whatever his obsession is lately. But he has a ton of different games like Final Fantasy, Bloodborne. I think he did one for Castlevania as well. But it's definitely worth checking out from both a game perspective and a music perspective.
Yeah. No, I've definitely heard the name, or at least seen it before. Yeah, no, I definitely want to. I want to hear that now, because especially anything just done in the style of Doom, it's such a Mick Gordan is. He is a human being. Like I don't know how else.
What a statement!
He is. He's
Shane, I have to say it to you. It's been a year, man, but you are a human being.
Yeah. Sound. I've always wondered. I've never been sure.
I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it other than I just see that he's just an ideal human being who you'd want to be, just in terms of the music production, the quality. Most of the guitars on the Doom soundtrack are literally just pitch shifted chainsaws and stuff like that. The ideas that chap goes through and the work he does in terms of audio producing. Now he was working on Bring Me's newest record, and you can just tell there's especially a section in the middle of one of their songs, and it just goes into this Doom style breakdown where you're pitch shifted chainsaws and the dirty blown out drums and what have you.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he's on a big Doom kick anyway, which is where I was going with this, because Mick Gordan just has such a sound to it. Do you know what I mean? The second that's put on, you just know, oh, that's Doom. That's Doom, and it's just that's down to Mick Gordan just being a fucking genius.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably of 2016. It's probably the most memorable soundtrack. It hits you in the face and you know what it is immediately, and that's exactly what that game really needed on the comeback. It needed to hit on all cylinders, both from gameplay perspective and the vibe was, a lot of it was that music from back in the day, and it 100% is okay, if I took that DOS music and I brought it into the 2020s or whatever, it was such a home run. But with all that being said, lads, there we go. That was our interesting thought experiment. We're going to continue it on next week, so lads, be ready for next week when we come back around. But if you did something interesting, you get a pass, Anyway, this week has been one unlike any other, because we have our very first live Gamescom. We also have a special feature dog in the background, so he's an unofficial member of CGC at the moment. But Gamescom this year, because of COVID, things had to go on, but they did the smart thing and they made it a digital event, meaning that there was a hell of a lot going on, and there is still a hell of a lot going on, and we've quite a bit to talk about. But before we dive into any of that, Shane, I want to know, have you played anything this week, my friend?
I have upheld my promise, and I have started playing Metro Exodus.
Hey!
The PS5 upgraded, super duper coat paint version. I'm enjoying it so far. It looks really pretty. It has ray traced water reflections and day and night cycles and dynamic weather and all this kind of carry on. Facial animations are a bit jank when you're talking to NPCs and stuff like that, but that's a lot of games have jank facial animations. So many games have super pretty environments and weapon details when you're holding them in your hands, and just jank facial animations. And everyone sounds like an American person trying to do a Russian accent.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem with every Metro game, really. I played them all in Russian.
Right. There was literally a line that happened near the start of this game where you're leaving your base or whatever, and you're talking about going to another one, and one of the soldiers makes a joke. He's like, "Oh, hopefully there'll be single women at this base." And the guy literally turns and goes, "That is great reaction." What the hell is that?
That is great reaction, though.
But the gameplay is fun. It's fun out exploring these kind of semi-open areas. You kind of go on a train from to new areas every couple of missions or whatever, and they're the train stops, you get off, and you kind of have these big open environments to explore. Find things. If it rewards exploration as well, if you're willing to go poking around, you might find I found night vision goggles, which came really in handy because I poked around enough, or I found a silencer for my gun, or new body armor, or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite tough as well. It's a hard game.
It is a bit, yeah, it is a bit. I only played about half of it, and I need to go back to it, but I do remember it being challenging enough. What level are you playing it on? Is it medium or hard, or?
I just play everything on regular.
Sure.
I don't care much for the hard, easy debate or anything like that. I just, whatever the game is set to when I turn it on is usually what I play it in.
Yeah, of course.
I never even bother checking.
Normally
unless
that's what
I'm
it's
really
built
struggling.
for, yeah. Normally that's what it's built for, and then you play on easy. It's just an easier version of what they were giving you in the first place. So you end up getting literally just the best experience, because it's the experience that it was built for that you're getting when you just go for that regular or whatever the immediately set difficulty is
100%. And in fact, that's going to tie into our community question of the week at the end, which I forgot to announce. Comes in from our good buddy Waxticles, who asks, should every game have an easy mode? And essentially that whole debate of should easy modes be in everything, yada yada, there has been that big resurgence of no, it shouldn't, because of essentially the Dark Souls community and people of that ilk. But we'll get into that at the end of this podcast. But Aaron, need to know, have you been playing anything this week?
I have. I've been playing a game that I've been looking forward to for a while now, and the first game I have pre-bought, I'd say, in a very long time.
Yeah, you actually said that I really want to be in this episode of the podcast because of this game, right?
Specifically because I've been playing Humankind.
Yes. This is a game I want to hear about.
Yes, this is 4X's. Essentially, they're I don't want to say sequel, but next game following on from the Civ franchise. Let me just tell you that it's been out since the 17th today as of filming, so it's been out 9 days. Essentially, I have 70.4 hours put into the game.
Nice. Wow. Nice.
I love Humankind. Do you know that? It has issues. It's still very early. There's a lot, you'll get. So essentially, you get choices pop up every now and again, kind of like the way they're doing Crusader Kings or other Paradox interactive strategy games. So a dialogue option will come up. You pick one or two, and I got one before that was narrative event _20%, no, not declined, Joe, because that just wasn't in. There's still bugs like that, and sometimes when you end the game, your soldiers just disappear off the map and stuff like that. But everything in between those moments, I'm it's Civ with it's streamlined Civ 6 essentially, the way I see it. Like, and it feels a lot more like a story when you're playing it in comparative to Civ 6. Do you know when like you started like, okay, I'm settling my city now, and then I have to develop this and build that. Whereas like with Humankind, it feels like you've actually watched like this nomadic tribe go into the industrial era and beyond and stuff like that. I don't know what it is, what they did with it, why it just feels right.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, from my understanding, I know very little. I haven't played at all, and I don't know. I'm not really that big into these kind of games, but I do like to try them. It seems as though it's like Civ, but it's not. Do you know the way like Civ is a bit weird, where like every civilization exists at the same time? So it's kind of like, Cleopatra is like fighting with somebody who was in a completely
Bismarck.
Different timeline. Or
Yeah.
Like, this seems to be like, no, you start at a point and you're going to work your way up, and your tribes or whatever are going to level up into whatever their next evolution is, but then also your enemies are. One complaint I'm hearing about it is that, like, much like Age of Empires or something, when you do level up, like all of your little encampments, like your barracks and your your different factories and what have you, they all change, of course, because you're kind of moving into a new era. But then you're doing that so often, and so are your enemies, that it can be kind of hard to keep track of what everything is, because it's just rapidly changing around you at any time.
Yeah, that is very true. So the way progression works in Humankind is you start out with like a single nomadic tribe. Do you know, in the like of Civ, you'll start with a settler and a builder, a settler and a warrior. So in Humankind, you start with a single tribe, but what that single tribe can do is place like an outpost. You can generate into a city, which you don't have to do immediately. You tend to spend the first couple of turns just looking around. That's the other thing about Humankind in comparison to Civ, which I love, is that the starting phases of a game are a lot more stretched out than Civ. You're not immediately trying to build, you're immediately trying to like discover new land, best places. So that's the thing about the nomadic tribe. You send it to look around the environment and what have you, but if it finds enough food, it can self-replicate. So you don't need to place like a city or an outpost in order to spawn more members of your tribe. They obviously, like, within the game, breed and generate a new one once there's enough food to facilitate them to do that. And so you can keep replicating these scouts and end up finishing by the time you go, so it goes Neolithic and then Ancient Era,
right?
And Ancient Era, that kind of tends to come in, you tend to get there around like turn 10 or 11, but you could go into that with like 5 tribe members who then instantly turn into scouts because you're no longer a nomadic tribe. So when you enter a new era after you've earned era stars, and that could be in the nomadic tribe, that'll be say like, kill 10 deer or kill 10 animals, or it'll say find 15 science items or what have you. You go into the next era and you pick a culture. So that's where what you were saying comes in about, like, you're not stuck with the one civilization for the entire game. You change every culture. You change culture every era. And so different cultures have different stackable traits. So like some will be more militaristic, some will be more into money, some will be more into land expansion, some will be more into just production, or some are into science. And so with every culture, you have like a core, which essentially becomes like your passive for that game. So it might just be like, for every farm plus 2 science or what have you. And then that will stick with you till the next era. There are also like additional things that come with it, but then you obviously lose that when you go on to the next thing. So you can keep stacking and set your build for your civilization based off of like stacking and multiplying the bonuses from each culture that you can get. And then obviously, the faster you get to the next term, so the faster you play, well, then the earlier you get to pick a culture, so you have a better chance at like stacking your build. And then like AI could take it away because they might just have an absolute explosion during the industrial era or something like that. And all the time you're playing it, you genuinely feel like there's actually, you're watching a development. And I remember I was saying it to you when I started, it was like, I love games where you start with nothing, and by the time you're finished, you're like, this is a whole different playing field.
Sure.
And that is what Humankind feels like. You start, you're very small on the map, you've nothing, you go around, discover, and by the time you get to like the end of the game, which I've only done once, played through a full game, by the time you get to that stage, you won't even recognize how like small of or how like little importance like that one cliff you couldn't get past as a Neolithic tribe, and now you're flying nukes over it. Do you know what I mean? Like you can, there's just that thing.
That's a nice bit of satisfaction right there.
Yeah, you feel like you're a lot bigger. In terms of what you were saying about the changing of the, what would you call it, the graphics or the appearance of, say, like different districts
like
that you can
that's only
place.
a minor thing I'm hearing on podcasts and stuff like that. People who maybe aren't as, up to speed on these types of games or whatever, but that's just like a lot to manage, No,
100%. And that I think that's a very valid complaint. At no point did I think of that, so that wasn't a big thing on my mind.
Yes, but your brain is 5 times larger than the average, you see. So.
It gets used 5 times less than the average.
That's the secret. There you go. Folks.
Yeah,
but
it's all about that balance. But I 100%.
Short, you're really enjoying it, though, aren't you?
I do. I love it, and that's what I say is like that. What you were bringing up there about the changing in graphics, I completely see how that could be an issue for someone. Personally, I just place districts and forget about them and just let them grow. So I don't play it to the full extent. I get why that would be a thing. It's I mean, if you just want to get into it and you just want to watch things develop and like just sort of semi-think about it and play it maybe more casual as opposed to like getting the best stackable abilities or stuff like that, I love it. I love it for that. But yeah.
Well, there we go. And it seems like you've touched Shane Bowe. He looks electric right there. He looks like he's going to bounce out the window.
I feel like the meme of like the guy from The Hangover where he has all like the mats in front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like that right now after like listening to Aaron talk about that game, because I don't play like RTS Civ style games at all because they're always so daunting to me and there's a lot to manage. And just hearing you talk about it, I'm literally like a deer in the headlights sitting here going like, oh my god, I don't know if I could ever play that game.
I get that because it's so hard to describe. Because like any other game, you're just like, it's an FPS set in like Russia. And then they know what to imagine. But like, how do you describe like turn-based strategy games?
Yeah.
You're like, it's like a board game, man, but like more and like digital.
Did you ever play Risk?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, sounds good. I must give it a try. That's on Game Pass, I believe, is it?
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Even if it's not, I'm gonna have to give it a try. But I have been playing quite a bit myself this week. In fact,
tell us.
I played from start to finish a Xbox exclusive, at least timed exclusive at this moment, which is 12 minutes. That's that like crazy, from top down game starring Daisy Ridley and, Charles Xavier, Willem Dafoe, the whole shebang. And it's essentially where you are a dude who walks into his apartment, greets his wife, and a whole lot of crap happens, and essentially it's just the same couple of minutes over and over and over again until you can figure out how to break the cycle. It is really, really good for the first like hour or two, and then it gets super, super tedious. But then when you see the end of it, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm glad I saw that, but it didn't need to be that tedious. It's a point and click adventure game, which I didn't expect. It really had, like, I have it on Game Pass, okay? So I could play it on the console, which I did at first. And then when I loaded it up, it was like a little marker that I was moving with the left stick and like click A to pick up thing. I was like, oh, hell no. So I swiftly turned my swivel chair around and downloaded it on the PC and played it there. But, which is a great thing about Game Pass, by the way. Like, shout that from the rooftops. It's like, oh, I'd rather play this on PC. I can. But the gameplay, it's really interesting. Like, it's Annapurna, these guys don't publish non-interesting games. For better or worse, they're always interesting. And the voice casting that I know came in at the last moment is pretty good. Like James McAvoy, as I said earlier, Charles Xavier, because that's where he is now for me, was pretty good at doing an American accent, and so was Daisy Ridley. If I wasn't told that it was these two people, I would not have guessed it was them, Willem Dafoe, though, is chewing up all the scenery, and he is completely Willem Dafoe. It's just, there is no getting him out of this, and it's not his first game either. I thought he'd be very much like, oh, I know what this is. He did that game with Ellen Page, didn't he? The Quantum Break, or no, whatever.
Beyond Two Souls.
It's from Quantic Dream.
Quantic Dream, yeah. It's
Beyond Two Souls.
Beyond Two Souls. Yes. Yeah, so he's been around the block. He's done mocap and everything, which he didn't have to do for this one. But again, he probably recorded a lot of lines from home, and the direction was probably hard or whatever. But he's super Dafoe. But yeah, it starts off really interesting. You're kind of, every time you die, or every time you try to leave the apartment, you return back to the beginning. And this can happen like in a minute, or it could happen within 12 minutes. But when 12 minute comes, regardless of whether you've died or gone out of the apartment, it also goes back. So that's where that name comes from. It's very hard as well to get to that 12-minute point, because you have to do an awful lot of things to allow that to happen, because Willem Dafoe is going to burst in that door and he's going to kick your ass and take no names. Like he's all down for business, and you have to try and figure out why he's there, how you're going to stop him. And in order to stop him, like, you have to set up like a daisy chain of events, and then your daisy chain of events will get you to a point where you learn some information that you can then bring into the next loop, because you retain all of your information. And so you can kind of, over like 12 loops or so, I had built up enough information from different conversations to convince my wife. The moment I walked through the door, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm in a loop, this shit happened, I know this because you're messed up and this is why, and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, we're all on board, cool, now let's focus on the problem. It's that kind of gameplay. It's really interesting. I would definitely advise anyone with Game Pass, do give it a shot. But when you get to that point of frustration, whip out a guide. Honest to God, you would not have guessed what you needed to do. It would have taken you hours, and it's not that long of a game. It's worth seeing the end. Just get to the end,
Yeah, it sounds similar to the last Annapurna game I played, which I reviewed, was Maquette, and it was like really interesting at first, and great like voice cast and great dialogue and stuff, and then it just started to wear really thin really quickly, and I just I was kind of just beelining to the end. I was like, I just want to get to the end of this game so I can review it and be done with it, because your whole shtick wore off after about 2 hours.
Yeah, and this game had the potential to like deviate from that, but not only did it expect you to do something you never had to do before towards the end, and it's just like, I would have never, you didn't put my mind in a place where I could have put two and two together to work this piece out here, when I looked it up on the guide, I went, what, you can do that? Like which is kind of a failing after 4 hours of playing the same 6 minutes again and again and again and again. But what really kind of grinded my gears about it was, you have to keep trying things, and eventually, like, the biggest thing, without giving anything away, is if you are playing it and you can't figure out what to do next, and you're not quite ready to go to the guide, if you tried something before and it didn't work, try it again, because it will probably work again the second or third time. But you do this kind of like cat and mouse thing of like, remember that board game Mousetrap, where you have to like do all the different things before you get the mouse? It's essentially that. Every time you start, you're like, okay, I put the cup here and the knife here, and I put some drugs in our coffee, and I do this and I do this and I do this, and then you get to a point where you're like, okay, now here's where I get to try something new. And then you do it, and it was the wrong thing. Now I have to do all that again, try something different. That was also the wrong thing. All that again. And so it's like an hour of just setting the same scenario up again and again and again and again and again. So that can be a bit tedious.
Yeah, I haven't got to play it, but I definitely saw some coverage between like just people I watch on Twitch and YouTube playing it. I've seen some of the reactions to some parts of it, and people are very shocked at some of the revelations that get thrown up. But the other thing is, I've seen them out of context, so maybe they shouldn't be shocked. Maybe they should be more shocked later on down the line. But I'm interested to see it, because that was the first thing I noticed, was especially you associate point and click games almost with just like 2D pixel. I mean,
Monkey Island and stuff like that.
Yeah, essentially. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, it did. It looks very interesting. I want to give it a shot now.
Do. Before we jump into Gamescom, I did start another game, and Shane, you will like this. I started Ghost of Tsushima this week.
Yes, we were texting about this.
Yes, we were.
Yes. So spill the beans. How is it so far?
It's pretty great. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'm really happy I waited for the better version. 60 frames a second. I don't know how I would have played it without it. You know, I know that you can do that now with the PS4 version, but like that was only like a couple of weeks ago. You know, it's great. It's kind of like it's like a standard Sony third-person exclusive open world game. If you cross that then with a bit of Breath of the Wild, and I don't know, there's something about it that I really like it. I love this. I love the setting. Okay, I love that whole Kurosawa setting, because like that's what it's going for. It's not even going for any form of historical accuracy. Like it's just going for complete Kurosawa mad samurai stuff, which I'm all about. I'm okay with that, because it allows for that mystical kind of tinge, I love the environments. Like Breath of the Wild comes to me every time I go through like a field with like swaying grass, and the wind is guiding you, which is a great mechanic, and all these things. And then the combat is visually nice, but there's not a lot to it. I found I kind of like once I kind of understood the rock paper scissors of everything, I'm like, oh yeah, this is super easy. I kind of I'm okay with that though. I wanted to turn it up to hard, and I went no, I would like to finish this game.
Yeah, it's not too bad on hard. I think I fiddled about with it on hard a little bit just to see. Yeah, I put a lot of time into that game, and it is like you say. It's like if it's a guy with a sword, use this stance. If it's a guy with a shield, use this stance. But they do, like, the game does get more difficult as you move through the acts and the chapters, and there is new enemy types and more difficult enemy types.
That's what I'm hoping for.
No, there is a bit of that, and there is a bit of kind of, when you raid a camp, like, in the early game, it's like, 6 dudes around a few tents and a bonfire. When you get further into the game and you go to raid a camp, there is like a castle and 40 soldiers and, all this kind of stuff. So I really like the stealth as well. I like sneaking around, and, I'm very big fan of sneaking around and like stabbing boys in the neck and stuff like that, shooting with bow arrows and things. I find that really fun. Well, like, but yeah, it's an awesome game.
It is a great game. The thing is with the stealth is though, I think they could have done more with it. It's very like by the numbers stealth game. It's just like, here's the tall grass, and this is the only place where you won't be seen, no matter how much noise you make, as long as you're crouched. And then here's where you can like hide behind a wall, and here's like press square to stab, and it's just like, I felt like the game kind of, the whole point, like the whole concept is like, he is a samurai, and he is being forced to kind of pick up ninjutsu tactics against his will, almost, to take back Tsushima. And that is super interesting in terms of story. And I don't know why people said the story is bad in this game. I actually am quite enjoying it so far. But the ninja stuff, and I know it's never called ninjutsu in the game or whatever, but that's what it is. Like it's silent, like thievery tactics, and knifing guys in the back. Samurais don't do that. But like, for a game that's leaning so much into this guy is going to start taking up stealth, I really was hoping to do something like interesting with that. But it is very by the numbers when you're sneaking around, I found.
Yeah, it can be for sure. Like you said, it doesn't do anything different stealth-wise than most other open world games. Hide in the grass, hide behind the wall, whatever, I don't know, jump over a bin or something. And like the usual carry on.
Yeah, like my question to myself yesterday was, if this wasn't set on Tsushima Island, if this was set in, I don't know, like anywhere else really, like if this was just like not Japanese and mystical, would this be considered a great game, or would this be considered like, is the setting and the wind and all of that type of stuff, is that doing a lot of heavy lifting to like make you want to really come back to it? Because I'm coming back to it a lot for the visuals. I have to admit, like.
Yeah, no, it did the same for me. What got me excited about that game from day one, from the minute I seen a trailer, was the whole Kurosawa samurai aspect. The, like, having a duel like with another samurai when there's like autumn leaves blowing across the camera and stuff like that.
That's
like,
cool, all right.
I was living for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's what got me, like,
Yeah.
I really ended up liking the game as well, but all that stuff is what pulled me in for when they first started showing trailers and gameplay and that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think so. I think it does a lot, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either. You know, like, people go to games, certain games, for certain reasons, and I think that's a great reason to go to that game. Especially, I don't know if you've done many of them, but all darted around the map as you go through the game, there is, like, one-on-one samurai duels. And, like, they're very different, a lot of them.
Yes.
And this takes place in very specific, like, artsy locations, like next to a waterfall, or on the coast where there's lightning striking and it's a storm, and that's when it's at its most like samurai movie, and it's so good.
It is so good. Yeah,
No,
I really want to put on that black and white Kurosawa filter or whatever.
I was
going to
ask.
Have the balls to do it.
I played like the first. I'd say out of my total playthrough of Ghost of Tsushima, I'd say the first half I nearly played in Kurosawa mode. I just thought it looked so good. And going with what you're saying about like the graphics or the visuals doing heavy lifting, I don't think it's that bad either. I mean, it was one of those few games that, like, when I was playing it, you know, say if there was an interaction on the road or if you're going into a camp, I kind of just went, whew. I just got into it, and it was like I was watching a film. Like, I think a game like game cinematics, you know, dragging you in. It's definitely something to commend the game for as well. And the same with what you were saying, Bowe, of like, you know, they'd have duels next to like unbelievable backgrounds, and
the artistic design is fantastic. Like, it is.
Yeah, they absolutely knew what they were doing. They did. I don't want to use the word robbed, but they definitely took a lot of inspiration from the likes of Kurosawa films. With you know, like, you'll see the wind moving in the background, and then the character's foreground movement, the way it was shaped and shot. Yeah, definitely. I loved it. And if there is a game right now that could convince me to buy a PS5, I actually would do. Only I don't own a PS5 yet. But when I do, yeah, I definitely I do want to give it another shot, because I had next to no complaints about that game, to be honest. And it wasn't even something that I was majorly into. It just got to a point where so many people were like, you would love this game, that was like, well, you can't all be wrong. And they weren't.
Do you know what it does? It sells you the fantasy of being a samurai,
Yeah.
wandering the land, living with honor, having duels, you know, sitting playing your flute or whatever, spending time with your horse,
Writing haiku.
Writing haiku.
Yeah.
It just sells the samurai tale, and that's all I ever wanted.
That's all we ever wanted. But yeah, it's awesome. Really looking forward to wrapping that guy up. I'll definitely finish this one. Probably not going to go back to Days Gone now at this point, though. I'm kind of like, I'm probably far enough away now. I think I got it. I seen your impressions. I'm happy enough with that, Shane.
Yeah.
Anyway, that has been what we've been playing and what we've been up to this week. Let's move on. Let's let people know about our beautiful, beautiful socials before we dive into what happened at day one of Gamescom during this week. Play that thing. Hey there. If you want to keep up with all things casual game content, you can do so in a number of ways. The easiest way to do so is to follow us on all of our socials at Casual Game Co. Not content, because you only get 15 characters, but hey, what can you do? At Casual Game Co. That's at CASUALGAMECO. Can't be any simpler than that. On Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And when you're at Facebook, look for the group, the Casual Game Community. It's a good bunch. We're going to love you. Come on by. If you could do us a massive favor, like the podcast, review the podcast, and just tell a friend about the podcast. It goes a long way, and you can find all of our content on podcast forums wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Casual Game Cast. Thanks again for all of your help and all of your support. It means the absolute world to us. Now, back to the show. And we are back. Now, this week, as I said, we had a online Gamescom. And we have had one day of this so far. So, my boys, my beautiful, beautiful boys, let's dive in to this sweet, sweet Gamescom goodness that we got.
News.
I'd like to start off with a little reboot. Not a remaster, not a remake. It's a different it's a reboot, okay? And I like to see this because it's of a game series that's actually near and dear to my heart for all the wrong reasons, which is Saints Row. Saints Row is getting a full-on, honest-to-goodness, grounds-up remake, or reboot. It's so hard not to say remake. What do you guys think of this? Have you seen any of it?
I saw the trailer.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Me too.
What did you think of the trailer, my boy Aaron?
Well, they didn't... Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's taken a better direction than the series has decided to go. It looks a lot more grounded, at least. Well, as grounded as Saint Row gets.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't look like it's... I mean, I feel like maybe at some point Saints Row, it tried to like straddle the line of like satire and over-the-top humor, but I think it got so ill-intentioned it ended up becoming what it was taking the piss out of. Like just adding in unnecessary things I think everyone kind of has got to a point where they're like, yeah, Saints Row probably should have stayed a bit more realistic. Because, I mean, the other thing is with how insane they made everything insane, so it just became a new world, if you know what I mean. It wasn't an insane world. It was just that what was happening was normal for that world, because the insane things that were happening were being drowned out by all the other insane things. And it wasn't like you're doing something mental in a perfectly normal world, like in, said, the likes of GTA or even up to Saints Row 2, especially, and even to some degree Saints Row 3. But so hopefully they keep the world more serious so that like your antics feel better and greater. And by the looks of it, they still seem to be having the same stylings without all the unnecessary fanfare that sort of drowns out. Yeah.
That's where my mind was too. It's like Saints Row 1 I thought was like an ambitious, who are these guys? And this is actually not that bad. Like it was one of those types of games where I didn't expect to like it, and it was pretty good. Saints Row 2 was great. And then Saints Row 3 was arguably better again, depending on who you ask. But 4 was really well received at the time, but that's where they introduced like superhero mechanics, and you were like in a virtual world, and it really jumped the shark at that point, even for Saints Row. Even though it was well reviewed, it wasn't really well remembered. They even remastered Saints Row 3 recently, which was free on Epic Store this week. And
I would say, yeah.
People jumped at that. It's like, yeah, this is what we want. So like obviously the proof of concept when they remastered that was, are people still interested in non-superhero Saints Row? Oh, they are, great, because we're remaking it. The trailer's CG trailer, it's not gameplay, so obviously pinch of salt. There's nothing really being shown here apart from the fact that unless that shirtless dude is called Johnny Gat, I don't think that character is going to be around anymore, and I'm kind of okay with that. And it does look like a whole new refresh of the characters, and if that CGI trailer is any indication of what we're looking at in terms of graphical fidelity, it looks pretty sweet. So I'm all for it. I want to see more, obviously, but I'm all for it. Shane, any thoughts, or should we move on?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy with the trailer. Looks good. Looks like what Saints Row should be. Saints Row was always the let's be GTA, but video games aren't supposed to be too serious. GTA always went the slightly more serious route, even though GTA is farcical in itself. But they always went the slightly more serious route. So Saints Row was let's be GTA, but in video game form, where it's great crack. And this looks like it's getting back to that, the right amount of that, because like you said, it went too far.
Yes, and when I looked at it as well, it kind of reminded me of, what if Saints Row, but also Fortnite?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it has that look about it slightly as well. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll wait to see more. But another thing that we'll probably wait to see more, that maybe Shane will be more excited for, is Marvel has a new XCOM style game apparently coming out, or at the very least, the XCOM people are making it. We can only assume. Midnight Suns. Any interest, Shane?
I looked at the trailer. I don't play much like strategy games or RTSs or anything like that. I was wondering, was this taken more of like as a comic book or superhero fan? I was wondering, is this taken from a specific comic? Is it a made up thing? Because like there's quite a mix of characters, but you know they're all black and gold and glowing suits and stuff like that. Very much driving home the whole sun thing.
Yes.
And I was like, is this from a specific thing that I don't understand or have never heard of? Or is this a whole new thing that's been made up just for this game?
Yeah, I'm not actually 100% sure. I'm actually doing a very quick Google as we speak. But it strikes me as something that has some kind of step or some foot in comics or what have you. But whatever the situation is, and maybe I'm not seeing much here, but maybe if it is or maybe if it isn't, it seems like we have a reason for all of the Marvel Universe to come together and fight a big bad that isn't the ones we know, meaning that much like Ultimate Alliance, we probably will be able to recruit the other big bads into your team and use them, because you've just got like one singular dude that's not really one you're too familiar with, which is nice because you can fight him with all of the people, you know. It's looking pretty sweet. Like, I like XCOM. I never played enough of it because I never really liked the look of it, if that makes sense. I liked the idea of it, and I'm not the best RTS guy, so like even an action RTS like XCOM, which is the game I was trying to think of when we had the Allcast guys on, even a game like that, I kind of fall off of it a little bit. It's a little bit too hard for me to play visually or something. But this, maybe the Marvel license will be enough to, you know, push me through.
Maybe that's what. Here's hoping. It's the Marvel license has piqued my interest, and especially the mixed bag of characters as well has kind of piqued my interest. The fact that like Blade is in there, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, like it's a weird mix of Marvel characters to just shove together. So I'm interested to see why or what's going on there, why they chose those particular characters to be all shoehorned in.
Blade and Ghost Rider, like front and center as well, like, you know, like especially Ghost Rider like is heavily in that trailer, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's really
maybe Nick Cage
like,
is coming back.
Who knows?
But you are the RTS guy anyway, Aaron. So, like, does this interest you at all? Are you more so, no, give me God tier looking down at my tribes?
Yeah, no, it doesn't interest me much at all. I mean, and it's nothing. I don't know. I never actually got into playing XCOM. Which is weird because I feel like it would be something I definitely end up getting into.
Yeah.
But every single interaction I have had with XCOM has been clips of people like smashing keyboards over like 97% accuracy misses.
That's
and
the kind
I
of
don't
stuff
want
that
to
wrecks
join
my head
them
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's a bit too RNG for me at times. You know, when I don't know, sometimes I get a bit miffed when I see games that are like, employ your strategy, and then just randomly sometimes it'll have been pointless.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, that sort of idea of the game annoys me. So I probably I'll have a look closer when it comes to release. But as for now, I'll be honest, it's been knocked off my chopping block of games to possibly get through this year.
Well, somebody write Stan Lee. I'm sure he's going to want to know from the grave. But moving swiftly on, Halo. We finally get a release date for Halo Infinite, and it is coming to us on December 8th without a campaign and without co-op. It's strictly going out for multiplayer in order to get it out the gap for the holiday season, it seems. It looks pretty cool. Like the trailer that they showed some gameplay, I think wasn't at the Microsoft event, it was actually at Gamescom, and it looks pretty cool because I could be wrong. I am trying to go through them all again in between other games on the Xbox, but like I don't think we've ever seen a situation where like Master Chief was, you know, interacting with the normal populace, you know, like he interacts with like the Colonel and other Spartans and aliens. That was generally about it. But in this trailer, you're seeing like, you know, Spartans kind of dropping down onto the battlefield, and there's like kids with hoodies and stuff like running across, and he's like, "Don't worry, kid, I got this," or whatever. Boom, boom, boom. And like I had to like weirdly take a moment and go, "Is that the first time I've ever seen him interact with a civvy?" It probably is. You know, in like 6 games or whatever. Like, you know, it's a bit nuts, but it does look pretty shiny, and I think getting multiplayer out there, whilst it doesn't suit everybody, I think it is a smart move. That if that's all if they could just deliver one thing, I think multiplayer, which is free, keep that in mind. If you have an Xbox, it doesn't matter if you have Game Pass or not. Multiplayer is free. That's going to get a lot of people in on that, you know, Halo shooty space or whatever. And then when that does come in January or February or whatever, you know, they're on it. They're there for it, you know.
Yeah, this is what I was about to ask. Is this like a Warzone Fortnite type deal? It's just there's no cost to entry. So like it's a little, I won't blame Microsoft for this. I blame the news outlets more. So it's a little like dick movie going like, oh, Halo Infinite has a release date. Click on our article, and you're like, yeah, it's just the multiplayer for Halo Infinite. It's just Halo Infinite doesn't have a release date. Halo Infinite multiplayer has a release date.
Oh, let me retract. Okay, I'd read something incorrect. It will in fact have the campaign. It won't have co-op campaign.
Okay.
And it won't have cooperative campaign multiplayer or its map editing forge. But it will have the free-to-play multiplayer mode, and it will have the standard one-player campaign.
Oh, okay. So it is actually Halo Infinite, really,
which is like a full package, really.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's completely fair. Well, when it was just multiplayer, I was like, yeah. When you said just multiplayer, I was like, oh, those sneaky Microsoft boys.
And then you were going to throw the news out with this under the bus. It's like, no, Microsoft are fine. But no, it is looking good, and I really hope this goes well for them. I think. Is a 343 makes them these days? I think they need this. I think they need this to really hit well, you know. So here's hoping. They also announced Xbox Series X with like a Halo skin and a new controller and stuff. Looks about as nerdy as every Halo one that's ever come out. So if that's your thing, all power to you. The controller that was announced at Gamescom that I'm interested for, I don't know if either of you have seen this, is the one for the new Forza Horizon game.
Yeah, I've seen it. It looks tasty.
It is class. It is so tacky. It's brilliant. I love it so much. It's like translucent yellow with like neon pink and blue accents. Ah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it does look awesome. I'd like to own that as well.
Yeah. Well, Shane, put it down on your Christmas list, my friend. Now, moving swiftly on, Forbidden West, the New Horizon sequel, is being delayed, it seems, and I'm all for it. I don't care, you know, delay for a year if you need to, make it a good game, and I won't care. The 5th of February, it seems we're getting that game, which is going to be an interesting time to release it. Like, it's like February is kind of like a no man's land, you know. Although other games have gotten success there recently, so maybe it'll be fine. I don't know.
Some games, I am convinced. Now, maybe I'm convinced because I'm not a huge fan of it, but the first Dying Light game released in January, and I am convinced that is what made that game so big, because everyone was in that like post-Christmas drought of like, what do I play? You know what I mean? There's nothing new out, especially for the gamers who keep up with everything a lot. I know there's all the kids that got loads of games at Christmas and are happy, but like, I'm convinced that's what made that game blow up was the January release window.
That's probably a fair point. And if you are a game as big as Horizon, you probably don't care when you release. You're going to get those sales, you know. You would like to get in for Christmas, but if you can't, it doesn't matter. It's interesting you bring up Dying Light, because Dying Light 2 got a gameplay trailer also this Gamescom. And that looked pretty sick. I really, really hope that this is going to be a good game after all of their delays and all of their development troubles and even their studio problems. There's been some, you know, stuff came up about them years ago. And I really hope that they deliver on this, because I love Dying Light. Me and friend of the show Amanda streamed the first game, and that must have been like the 3rd time I've played it. It's so good. It's so good. It's Mirror's Edge with zombies. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I played a good lot of it. It was one of those few games that I got to play with a team of mates, and it's It's one of the again going back to Shane, what you were saying about the January release window. Like I think you're dead right, because it's also the perfect game to play when you have nothing to do, because the main mode of like progression or the gameplay loop is just killing more and more zombies. You know, you're like you kill something, you're like, but I could get a different weapon and kill more, and it always compounds on itself. It's one of those like perfect games, as you said, when you have nothing else to play and you're like, I can just mindlessly soak into my chair post Christmas, you know, New Year depression kicking in. You're ready to go, and you're just one with the chair, slashing away at as many zombies as you can. It was one of those. It's one of those very, very, very enjoyable multiplayer experiences. Now, I must say
that's the thing. I had never played it multiplayer until we streamed it, and like when you're playing it by yourself, it's like a high 8. You know, it's like a somewhere in the 8 range. It's not perfect by any means. It has its flaws, but it does some really interesting things, and it's just a fun game. Like the movement is just fun, you know. But then you bring in another person or 2 or 3, it just opens it up. Like it's so seamless as well, you know. Like
100%.
Nothing changes. It's just the world goes on, and like the difficulty will scale as it needs to, and it all just works. And it like that's what's impressive about it, you know. Because I remember playing Left 4 Dead with crowds back in the day, and like the jank was real. Like you try to get somebody into that game, it was a nightmare. And then when they're in there, stuff just went wrong all the time. And then you look at a game as impressive in scope as Dying Light. I know there's zombies, but there's a lot going on. And it just works. Like, you know, one person be on one end of the map, I'd be on the other. Everything's working fine. Do you know? It's crazy. But yeah, that looks cool. The gameplay for the second one looks interesting, though, because we've seen 2 things that I hadn't seen in the original game. Although maybe, Shane, I'm wrong. Maybe this was in the original game. But one that definitely wasn't was a grappling hook that isn't like, you know, almost like a spider web type thing. Like they had like a kind of a Spider-Man mechanic in the first game, but this one is more like a literal grappling hook where I can like hook it onto a wall and jump down and parasail and burst in through windows and do all these kind of crazy moves.
Yeah, I don't remember. I never finished the first game because I wasn't a huge fan. Now, that comes with a little like asterisk next to it. I'm not a huge fan of the zombie genre in general. And it tends to turn me off even really good games. I'm like, it's just more zombies. I can't get into this. So Dying Light could have been a 10 out of 10 game, and because it's zombies, the back of my mind is going, it's just more zombies. This is boring me. You know what I mean? I just want to play something else. So like,
sure,
I could go back and play it now and think it's phenomenal. You know?
Yeah, the mechanics in it are what makes it sing, you see. So then when you get like a couple of hours in and there's like all these like grappling mechanics where you can just, you know, zip up to the top of a building in an instant, and you can zip from building to building like Spider-Man, it becomes pretty nuts. But yeah, and just to top it off, the thing I was wondering, did this ever make it into the first game, was when he grapples into a building, he then sees a zombie out a window, and he like rushes at the zombie and grabs him, gives him a bear hug, and essentially like lands on him from the building out through the window down onto the ground. That's a cool mechanic. I want to do that all the time. I'll never
really cool.
I'll never come down off a building normally again.
If that's the main focus of Dying Light 2 is just smoother, cooler ways of killing zombies, I think that's all that game needs. Yeah, that's all that game really needs. Like, if I can suplex a poor, unsuspecting zombie in his early 20s off of the highest prime of his zombie life, he is getting... No, I'm not going to say that joke.
Moving swiftly on.
No, but like if I could like suplex or like judo flip some zombie off of like a 20-story 10 out of 10 already. Like it's you don't even it's
you're
just I think
you're a man of simple taste, but this game might be the thing to fill them.
Like that's all I feel like they really need to focus on. I mean, in terms of like grappling hook and slide mechanics, I mean, yeah, they're cool, but just fill that game with as many cool death animations as possible. That's all I want to see.
The thing about the original was like, yes, you do start off slow and you're killing zombies and stuff like that, but then towards the end you're really only killing the ones that are in your way. You know, like it's traversal. It's all about Mirror's Edge style traversal, and that's like, I love Mirror's Edge. Shane, I know you do too, and that's where that game really works is that like Mirror's Edge, but there's like extra obstacles that are in zombie form, you know, like that's essentially what it is. But we digress. Shall we move on to Death Stranding? We've seen some director's cut footage of what's going to be coming in that game. It's all just like more mad stuff for Norman Reedus to like propel his various cargoes around the land. I don't know. I seen that they're going to be doing an upgrade path for $10 or €10, and so I might, just for the hell of it, upgrade my PS4 copy. But I don't know. I didn't see anything in there that was like, oh, this is going to make me want to finish that game now.
No, yeah. I finished the game, and we know from our 52 odd episodes that I'm a huge fan of Death Stranding. I love how weird it is, love how out there it is. I'm quite happy. I'm happy we have a Kojima in this world to make out there games. I don't want every game developer to be like Kojima, because then I'd be driven demented. But sure. It's nice to find that weird diamond in the rough every now and then, you know what I mean? But the stuff I've seen as well didn't make me go, oh yeah, I'm definitely getting back into Death Stranding. Even though I loved it a lot, I'm still like, the only thing that maybe got me was the new missions where you kind of sort of Metal Gear-esque, you know, go through facilities and try like stealth some dudes.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because like, wow, did he pull the Metal Gear strings when they showed that? Like the music in the background was like, you know, it was like that tension rising music in Metal Gear 1 or whatever. You know, it's like the kind of snares and the fanfats and you know, like it was very, very Metal Gear. And it actually reminded me of something that I hadn't thought of in years. Do you remember Metal Gear 1? Do you remember the VR missions?
Yes, actually.
Do you remember like the whole standalone game VR missions? Like that looks like this, but in Death Stranding. And in my mind, all I could think about was, Konami, why don't you just make Metal Gear Solid 5 spin-off the VR missions and just have it be like endless, like just even randomly generated missions of just crap? Like people would eat. I would eat that alive.
Yeah, it's such a shame that like Metal Gear is just locked behind Konami now forever.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like we're going to get some kind of a fix with this.
A little bit. And we get a new racing mode where there's racetracks to drive motorbikes and new cars and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that was
race
bizarre.
Against online leaderboards. And like, now, bizarre. As someone who built a lot of roads in that game, like a lot, like I completed the roads. This kind of looks a bit fun to me, because I always like, once I had those roads completed, I was like, I am sailing on through this game. No more tripping over rocks for my Norman Reedus. No.
Yeah, but like it was the journey to build those roads that turned me off, because I wasn't playing online. I always play these games that have online functionality offline, because I just don't want to be messed with. Like, you know, in Dark Souls, I think that's where it kind of comes from. I'm just like I don't want to be invaded. I just don't want it. All right, and then I just go offline, and I did that on Death Stranding, and only after I put it down did I realize, oh, I probably made this game a hell of a lot longer, because I was building every goddamn road myself and by myself, and it was just like gathering resources, putting the resources into the, you know, road building machine, and it's like, you have put in like 2% of what it takes to build this road. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. As far as I remember with Death Stranding though, it was all cooperative stuff. No one could mess with you in Death Stranding, I don't think.
No, they couldn't, but that's what I'm saying is in other games generally they can, or there's elements that I'm not really there for. However, in Death Stranding, it's beneficial to be online, and I didn't realize that, because when I went back to the game for like an hour or two and I went on to online, you know, way of playing it, all of a sudden like every road was in front of me, and like there was like a million emojis, but like everything was done, you know. I was like, oh, excellent. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, we'll jump into that as the time comes. One game we probably won't jump into, maybe Aaron will be the outsider here, or maybe Shane will surprise me, is Call of Duty Vanguard. Vanguard got its first trailer, which is essentially going to be World War II once again in Call of Duty. I, for one, am so done with World War One and Two recreations in the flavor of Battlefield and Call of Duty. Like, I don't care if other games do it. I'm all for it, in fact, when people do it interestingly, but like, I just can't do another Call of Duty or Battlefield in World War One or World War Two at this point.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah, I think the problem is that there's just as you said, like there is no extra flavor that they're adding to it. It's just here's like another bombed village, have another mission in it, kill
50
some
kills
enemies.
gets you another nuke, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like if the big thing that these are all missing, I know, like there is a campaign and there is a story, but I would like to see like an actually decent war story, like a genuine retelling of like a war story through a video game, and like genuine. Do you know what I mean? A bit,
Yeah.
You do get a bit tired of like this forced narrative of like, oh well, in war some people are good and some people are just bad and we're the good guys. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to see like a fleshed out realistic interpretation of like any sort of battle. Do you know?
I think World War II went for that. World War II did. I played the campaign in World War II, and you followed a very specific character as he pushed through France. And the game actually ended when you reached the German border. That was the end of the game. So it was specifically about this character's push through war-torn France, trying to drive back the Nazis.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine. I was finished anyway.
But was it like, okay, you get like a 3-minute or less well-produced cutscene of his backstory, and then it's like him getting out of a lorry with 17 other guys, and it's just like shoot, explosion, cinematic, shoot, and then like another 2 moments of like backstory, and then shoot. It's like, because like that's still, to me, no matter where the setting is still that same thing. It is. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like for me, like I think like games that have done, what's the name of that PC only World War II game where it's just absolutely nuts, and it's just like, it came out a couple of years back where like there's like 50 people just up on one battlefield doing all sorts of carry on. Games like that, or what I would like to see with World War II, which I think maybe it's a bit hard to do because like it's a touchy subject. I would like to see like an adventure game set in World War II that is like, you start off as like a young man or woman in this time, and you just like live a life. Do you know, like you live a village, and maybe you're a couple of hours in before you ever see a gun. Do you know? Yeah. Like I want to see something ambitious that really goes for like setting the tone and setting the world, and then, if there has to be combat moments in there somehow, maybe grand. But like I want to see like a reason for me to care, you know what I mean? Because like just dangling World War II was terrible. It was, I know, I'm aware. In front of me, it just isn't enough anymore,
Yeah, it's just, it's the Call of Duty-isms. This new one is gonna follow 4 characters playing like and in the 4 different fronts. You go to this Pacific campaign, the Eastern Front, the Western Front, all this kind of carry on. But like you said, it's probably going to be the same old, war is terrible, we're all soldiers of war. Let me spray down 4,000 dudes in one, and then go, war is so terrible, why am I killing these people?
Like, this is one of the things that I have always said, that like the most interesting thing that happened in the 2010s in video games, and it only happened for the first like quarter of that game, was, do you remember the Tomb Raider reboot?
Mm-hmm.
The one where she's like the new trilogy, the first one of those.
Yeah.
When she kills her first, enemy, it's like gut wrenching. Like she has a panic attack. She freaks out. Like she can't, and to make it very visceral. And then I was thinking, so this is not going to be your average Tomb Raider game where everything that moves dies. No, it very quickly devolved into that. And, it really took away the pathos that they kind of built with that moment, But, like, if we could have a World War II game where, like, I'm sure there is people from World War II that had, like, KDs up into the, like, hundreds, like guys on miniguns and stuff. But, like, you have to imagine the average grunt, like, he probably killed no more than 10 men, which is still a hell of a lot to kill, like, like, that's the story I want to see. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, you're almost trying to survive more than you are trying to like kill an entire squadron by yourself, in every level.
Yeah, for what you're saying about like however many lads there were on an army squadron that had like KDs into the hundreds, there was probably 10 men for every one of those who ran away from the trenches, you know? And
exactly.
I'd kind of like to hear the story about like what did a soldier see in the trenches that made him feel the need to run away from war, you know? And like then what happened on his run away from war. And it needs a whole, I think, especially war-related games, and there definitely are a few, but especially World War II, and like you've such a wealth of like historic or like
you got different countries,
historical
different
events,
all melded together.
Like there's so many historical influences for stories that you can like draw on and visualize and build it. Like it's already written for you, and Joe, it is in a way. So it needs, especially just that whole genre of like World War II games needs new aims in it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just going, just go into World War II.
We need a new Saboteur, the cult classic Saboteur.
Yeah,
Saboteur wasn't bad, man. Saboteur wasn't
but
bad.
It was one of those things like you're talking about. It's like it's set in the war, but you're a very specific dude who's going around like sneaking around, planting bombs to try mess up the Germans' war efforts and stuff like that. You're not just random soldier Machine Gun Joe spraying down 4,000 people, you know. So it was interesting at least, and it was the kind of thing you're talking about. So bring back Saboteur.
Bring back Saboteur. They heard it here first, folks. Now, speaking of Saboteur, you got to talk about the Ninja Turtles. That is one hell of a segue. Ninja Turtles also got a bit of a gameplay showing. I can't wait for that game. We won't spend any more time on this, but I just had to call it out because April O'Neil will be a playable character for the first time in a side-scrolling TMNT game. Woohoo! Anyway, shall we move swiftly on to this week's question of the week?
No, we shan't.
No, incoming.
It's been 1 year in, and I'm finally not agreeing with you that we're going to the question of the week. I have.
He's growing a backbone.
I'm finally standing up for myself, everybody. No, I have one more little sneaky news story that's not Gamescom related. That's going to take like 2 minutes, and we're going to make a little game out of it just for fun, for shits and gigs.
I love games.
So, I mentioned this in the green room earlier. There's another announcement of another game to TV adaptation. We know the world is ripe with them at the moment. Yes. Your Last of Us is your Witcher, blah 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 blah. So there has been a new one.
Okay.
And it is coming to TV. And I would like each of you to have 2 guesses at what game you think might be being adapted to TV.
So, first of all, when we talked about this in the green room, you didn't tell us what these were. And nope. Aaron, I think you had said that you might have heard what it was. So maybe I'll go first just in case you were right.
I said I might have heard and completely ignored it.
Sure.
Like I might have just seen it and gone, not letting that get into my brain.
But yeah, like it only got announced today?
No, it got announced. Well, I'm not sure when it got announced. I just came across it like 2 days ago, maybe.
Okay. We haven't talked about it on past casts, I assume.
Nope, we have not talked about it at all.
Okay. And it's a video game.
It's a video game.
What is left, you know? Okay. Have we talked about it on this show?
No, we haven't at all. That's like, I'm like, this is not like a 20 questions thing. This is like, go with your gut even. What would you like it to be? You know what I mean? Like just 2 guesses of either what you think is ripe for adaptation or what you would love it to be. Okay. And I will tell you how right or wrong you are.
Okay. Well, we were getting a Pokemon thing. We learned that last week or the week before. I don't know. Like, there's just, like, what? Doom? No, we talked about Doom.
Yeah.
It's not Doom.
You can just make 2 guesses and then I'll tell you the real answer once you've made your 2 guesses.
All right, I'm gonna make 2 wild guesses. So okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna say Oregon Trail.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say Streets of Rage.
Okie dokie.
Zelda and Rocket League, all in the one show. Both of them get drawn. It's a crossover. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, neither of you were close.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So the game that has been adapted to a TV show for NBC's streaming service Peacock.
Oh, then you know it's going to be brilliant.
Is Frogger.
Oh, this was announced a long time ago. This is the game show.
Yes, this is like it's like what's that Total Wipeout that you see on TV where the people run across like the foam stuff and fall into water. It's that, but with the guise of Frogger. Like you have to dodge the foam traffic and jump on the foam lily pad.
It reminds me of, did you see that awful show that's been on Netflix over the course of the lockdown?
I know exactly what you're going to say. Sexy Beasts, is it?
No.
An entire... right.
No.
The floor is lava?
That's the furry thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
The floor is lava.
Yeah, the floor is lava is what I was going to say.
Right.
Well, the furry thing has nothing to do with Wipeout. What are you talking about?
No, because when we were saying Frogger, I don't know. I was still thinking animals. Like you're saying.
I've got it on my mind too, Phil. I can't wait that we can both get this out.
Sexy Beasts. No.
Let's do this. Let's reveal. Come on, put on the head.
Yeah.
But no, it's very, very similar to Floor is Lava from what I could see. The only reason I didn't think of that, well, I probably wouldn't have thought of it anyway, but the reason I didn't think of that was we had actually, I'd say halfway through the year, we had reported on that on this very podcast.
Really?
Yeah, it had been picked up and had been picked up as a game show, and that was the news, where it's like, a game show? And that was all we knew. But now, what's been shown and what I saw that made me think of Floor is Lava is the kind of what came out this week.
Yeah, it is just that. It's just the Floor is Lava. It's Total Wipeout. It's it's all those shows combined into one with the guise of Frogger wrapped around it.
Bizarre.
So bizarre. But like never in a million years, like if someone told you there's a new TV adaptation, you're thinking like, what really story-driven games would work well on the TV screen? And someone's like Frogger, you're like, what? Why not?
It works well in the guise of a Total Wipeout clone, like it's
true.
Yeah, get from A to B without getting murdered. Like, okay, I can see where you're going with it. Like, it's weird though. Like, how did they begin this? Do you know? Did they say, I know the guy who owns Frogger, or like, is it Atari who owns it? I don't know. But like, how did this begin? Was it like, right, we have a Wipeout clone, we just need a property, and then like, or was it the other way around? They got this property and went, we can make a show out of this. We can't really do anything story related because there's Frogger. How about we make it? Do you know what I mean? Like, what was the ingestation point here?
I mean, on top of that, who was asking for this?
Nobody. Nobody. Yeah, not a soul.
Who sat at home and was like... Because when you said that to me there, I don't know about the 2E, but that was the first time I thought about Frogger in nearly about, I'd say, half a decade.
Probably since Frogger was released.
There are children who have been born and have currently completed their first year of primary school in the time that it has taken for me to hear about Frogger consecutively. Like, that's how far apart, that's how little I've heard anyone ever have a conversation about Frogger. So I don't know, is that even going to, like, are people going to go, oh, yeah, that's the game show I desperately want to see? Like, is it a marketable brand still? I don't know.
I don't know, like, is the Floor is Lava a marketable brand? Like, that's just like a thing kids play as well. It's just like, I don't know. It probably is enough cachet that like a parent will turn it on, and it probably looks ridiculous enough that a kid would watch it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe. Maybe I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna check it out. Like, you have to.
Give it a look just to see. Out sheer morbid curiosity, I have to give it a watch. Like, I've often watched that. I would watch Total Wipeout when I'm like having a cup of coffee in the morning or something.
I like Total Wipeout to a degree. I like Takeshi's Castle, and Floor is Lava can suck a D.
Definitely.
Really do not like that show.
The newer Total Wipeout is being hosted by John Cena now, so it's a little bit better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, we never talked about it because it was our 52nd episode, and I think the week before that, the Allcast guys were with us. Suicide Squad, watch that.
Yeah,
that week.
Me too.
Just gotta say, John Cena,
hilarious.
He did a great job.
Hilarious. He made me laugh out loud watching that movie.
Yeah. So did Sylvester Stallone. Like, he really got his stupid role down, like,
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
James Gunn, you delight. Anyway, moving on. Shall we get into the question of the week now that Shane's had his little outburst?
Let's do it. Okay. I'm calm now. I've got it out of my system.
You're a diva when you haven't said your news stories. But play that thing.
Question of the week.
Now, this week's question of the week, I didn't write it down, but I have the gist of it, comes in from our buddy Jack, who was on a previous episode or two, and he asks us over at the Facebook community, the casual game community, where you too can ask questions. Do we agree with the current culture where every game should have an easy mode? I think what he's kind of getting at there, and again, I was paraphrasing that question because we lost the doc. What he's kind of driving at there is there has been a kind of a resurgence in every game should have an easy mode. And some people want that just for the sake of having it. Some people want that for accessibility terms. And some people want that essentially... I don't think there's any wrong reason that you can, ask for something like that. But it has started a huge debate where especially people in the kind of get good communities are like mortified. Like the big example is, should Dark Souls have an easy mode? And that's where a lot of people seem to lose their mind online. But that doesn't just stop there. It's like every single game, whether it's designed to be hard, whether it's designed to be a story thing, whether it's designed to be an RTS, whatever it is, should everything have a kind of a slider of accessibility in terms of difficulty? Shane, you're the Dark Souls guy, so I'm going to ask you.
I am the Dark Souls guy, and like I don't buy into the whole get good mentality. I've made the joke here and there, but like it doesn't affect me if you play a game on easy. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't affect me at all. I think part of it comes down to game design as well. So like the likes of, say, we were talking about Call of Duty earlier on. When you increase the difficulty on Call of Duty, it just means that you die in less bullets and enemies die in less bullets. You know, the general gist of the game doesn't change. It's still point the gun, shoot the gun, throw a grenade, or whatever. You just have to be careful to kind of dodge a few more bullets. Yeah. Whereas the likes of a Souls game is designed from the ground up with like a difficulty curve in mind. Now, I know the difficulty curve starts at hard and gets harder. Don't get me wrong, I'm aware of that. But like it's built into the game design, and the ethos of the game is to persevere and overcome these extreme challenges. But at the same time, if I turned on a Dark Souls in the morning and there was like you went into the menu and you hit new game and it went, play this game the way it was intended, or play this game as an easier challenge for people that just want to experience, the world and the lore and stuff, no problem. That's not going to affect me the slightest. If I can still play the game the way it was intended, that the developer wanted me to play it, exactly like Aaron said with the playing on regular earlier, if I can play it the way the developer intended me to play it, fine, brilliant, excellent. And if someone else still gets to enjoy it in the way they want to enjoy it, then it's no skin off my nose. What harm does it do to me? There's absolutely no harm to me whatsoever, because I don't have to play it on that mode at all.
Yep. It's like, you kind of touch off a good point there. And what I think a lot of the argument that, a lot of the weight behind the no, they should never argument is very much that. It's like, well, you're kind of taking away the, game developer's intent. The artistic intent is being robbed here. It was designed to only be difficult, or only, be able to be gotten through perseverance or whatever. And yes, 100%, that was completely what the game was designed around, and I get that, and I don't argue that at all. And I know you don't either. This is me just talking to the general populace.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the thing about that is, not everybody was born with the same capabilities, and not everybody, like, the way I always think of it is like, if I had a relation or a partner or a friend who was differently abled, both maybe either mentally or physically, or even doesn't even have to be differently able. It could just be somebody who just sucks at video games, but they desperately want to know why I love this world, why I love this game. Like, I don't think it would really take that much away from any artist to be able to say, yeah, we'll put like a story mode in. Like, games do that all the time, where it's like, do you want to play the game, or are you just here for the story? Like, put that in there and make everything die in a couple of swings, like, and then that's all you need to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like, reworking everything. It can just be like, well, if this ghoul took 4 swings to die with this weapon, now it's 1. Or if it's like that kind of a level will go a long way to allowing people to kind of go, wow, yeah, I can see, Shane, where you're really into this, because like that end boss, he was cool as hell. Like, like, I want to be able to share that with people. I don't think there should be like, no, you should never be able to see this because you can't beat it. It's like, that's an outdated thing. That's something that we did in the 80s in video games to sell guides. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not needed anymore. But I agree with you. I think that intent should be there for the kind of like play it as we designed this game, you know, normal mode.
Yeah, just example. Like, you know, like you say, when you're scrolling through the menu on a game and it's like easy, hard, medium, and you know, next to it comes up like for players that are not very experienced in first person shooters, or for people who prefer more of a challenge or whatever.
Yes.
Just if one of those options said next to it, this is the way the developer intended it to be played.
Yeah, that's it. Bang.
Fine, grand, good. I'll just click on that option and I'm happy, ready to go.
For sure, for sure. And like the crux of it is as well is that like it's just, I had this argument I think with somebody on our Facebook group where it might have even been Jack, where we were saying like, you know, I was going to argue from the point of view of like it's for accessibility. Like, you know, if a game is too hard for you, you won't play through it. Like, and maybe it's you literally cannot get any better at this for any number of reasons. You know, disability. Just general ability at games, or there could be any other reason in the world where you will never get past this game on normal mode. By just making things a bit easier, you have created an entry level for that, you know, person who needs that extra bit of accessibility, you know. And I think to say that an easy mode wouldn't be a feature towards further accessibility, which is a bigger thing, you know, it's a bigger thing than just difficulty. It's like color blindness. It's, you know, it's sound cues. It's like there's a huge project in any game to make it accessible, where I think like an easy mode is just like the first easy tick that you can put on to say, well, at least difficulty isn't going to hold you back, like, you know. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement with the two of yous. I don't think suffering is a requirement for enjoyment at the end of the day. I mean, just because you want to play a game and just because you want to see the game's characters and the game's world and what it's built and what it's put together, I don't think that means you have to get angry and want to fire your controller against a wall. Or I think like you should still be allowed go, right, I want to do this, but I want to just I do want to go down the road without smelling the roses, maybe, or whatever. Joe, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be too invested in this game, or I just want to zip by and get through it. Once it still has the original intent in it, then yeah, you're not missing out on anything, you're just getting something extra. And then chances are, if there's an easier version, 9 times out of 10 there'll be a more difficult version, so go entertain yourself with that if you know, if that's what you're really aiming for.
That's the funny thing, because I've seen people in the same breath say, no, games shouldn't have an easy mode, why don't more games have a hard mode? It's like,
yeah, it's the same.
You literally want to make it harder, but you don't want to make it any easier. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I don't know if it's a direct comparison, but it's kind of like saying, oh, you want to listen to music? Well, you have to listen to it on like vinyl for now, and you're not allowed to stream any more music, or like nobody's benefiting from that cutting off of accessibility.
Exactly.
Let more people enjoy it, in my eyes.
Like, why not? Why can't you give Dark Souls to your grandmother and have her beat it? Why not?
Yeah,
exactly.
Just let her at it. Let her spit her dentures out against the wall in frustration.
That's the exact problem with the Gecko community. Is like you said, the Gecko community is very heavily involved in Souls-like games, and if there is an easy mode, they will bring up the point of, oh, well, if you're struggling with a boss the way the developer intended you to fight this boss and you just cannot do it, you're just going to switch to easy, and then you're going against the developer's intentions and stuff. But it's like, well, yeah, but I'm never going to finish the game if I don't sometimes go against the developer's intentions. Because, case in point, myself, I am not finishing Returnal anytime soon, because that game I find really difficult because I'm not very good at twitch shooters. And that is very twitchy, and you know, you have to run here and jump here and dodge this and shoot here, and I'm not good at that. And I'm really struggling with that game to a point where I have played Days Gone and started a whole other game since starting Returnal.
Yeah, which isn't like you.
Which is not like me at all.
And yeah, do you think you'll drop that down to easy? Is there an easy mode in Returnal?
No, Returnal is one of those. The only mode you get is the way the developer intended.
Now, that game could do with an easy mode.
Definitely. It even says it at the start. There is a warning at the start of this game that this is intended to be a really difficult game. If you need a break mid-run, you can put your PS5 in rest mode. The game actually tells you this.
Yeah, but that was a message that was baked in after the fact, when people realized that they couldn't just turn it off and pick up from where they left off. That like the runs, you just either have to finish it or lose it, one or the other, you know. And that rest thing is a balls, because like I don't know about you, Shane, but my PS5 just turns off sometimes. You know, it's in rest mode, and then
mine never has. I've left mine in rest mode like overnight, downloading a game and stuff, and it's always been fine.
It's like luck of the draw. I find that like I come down and I've turned on that PS5 behind me, and sometimes Ghost of Tsushima comes up exactly where I was, and then sometimes it's like you turned off this incorrectly or something, and my power didn't go off. My alarm clock's still fine. You know, it's like I don't know what's going on, and I'm not the only person apparently. So also my USBs don't charge my controller. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, yeah, I think overall, like, I don't want to see hard games going away. Like, I think that isn't the argument here, and I don't think that ever will be the argument. I just think that, yes, it's nice to have this little accomplishment and to have this little community built around this accomplishment of finishing these hard games. But the difficulty, is that the only good thing about them? Is that the only thing that we need to treasure here? Because like a lot of work and a lot of people put hours and hours into building these worlds, this lore, these characters, this dialogue, the lighting, the music. If people just bounce off the first level because there hasn't been a difficulty that they can actually play, then what was the point in it all? You're only getting it out to like a fraction of the people that could have been enjoying it and been part of that conversation with you. It's like having your ball and going home, in my mind, you know?
Yeah, like as someone who works in games retail, when a teenager or something comes up to me with like, you know, a copy of Dark Souls 3 or something, or Bloodborne or something like that, I tell them, I'm like, you know, this is a really difficult game and there's no option to change the difficulty. Like, I'm just warning you now, you could go home and play this, and after spending your 70 quid, you could be like an hour in and go, I hate this game, that was such a waste of money. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I also explained the other side of it as well, that there is a great sense of accomplishment when you can get through the game and beat bosses and stuff like that. But I do warn people, I said, if you're not in the market for a challenge, do not buy this game.
Yep. And if you had an easy mode in there, that kid might not have brought it back.
Exactly.
But anyway, that is that. Will we ever get to the bottom of this? No. But I think that the easiest thing is just to put them in, guys. Come on, let's just get on board. Anyway, that has been episode number 53 of the Casual Gamecast. If you have never been here before, welcome, because you did stumble across what is by far the most casual podcast on the interwebs, a Casual Gamecast, if you will. And if you have been here before, thanks again for stopping by. Your support means the world to us. You can find all of our socials at Casual Game Co. They'll be in the description below. Our Discord is in the description below. You can check us out on Tuesdays, streaming GTA 3 at the moment at Casual Game Co. on Twitch, or more accurately twitch.tv/Casual Game Co. And you can see our new and upcoming, actually it will be released by the time this episode is out, but we have a new podcast and we're going to have to update all of our socials because of it. It is called Casual Game Crossovers, and it should be in your news feed or your podcast feed or wherever it is you get your podcast. So you can find it. Just Google Casual Game Cast in Spotify or in wherever. It is a podcast where myself and Shane and whomever will join us will be talking about all things tangential to video games, whether that's movies, TV shows, books, you name it. It's going to be fun. So first season, we're doing The Witcher on Netflix, and boy howdy did I enjoy watching that thing again, and I cannot wait to share me and Shane's thoughts about it. Anywho, with all that said and done, I've been Phil, he's been Shane, he's been Aaron, and shall we just say goodbye, folks?
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye! Take care, God bless, and for the most of all, stay casual.